Hello ladies and gentlemen. Today I am going to show you another legendary video of the chaddest cowboy the West ever had. So make sure to sit comfortably and grab yourself a warm cup of something to drink. Hope you enjoy this legendary episode. This is the story of Chad Marston. He was a weak man with almost no ambitions. Although he owned land, it was always used for peasant ranching and farming work. He always felt like this wasn't his true purpose, but he was too scared to do anything about it. All his life he had been beaten by anyone and everyone because people thought he looked ugly and pathetic. Which I agree, but, as you know, this video is obviously about chads, and chads have nothing to do with either the word pathetic or weak. This is Chad Marston's journey on how he escaped being a wimpy beta male and ascended to the higher consciousness and shot his way on the top of social and cultural hierarchy. One day while I was standing on a hill on my ranch, I felt useless and wanted to do something bigger in life. I always knew I had something in me, but I could never muster up the courage to go beyond the average. But today was different. I felt the urge to just go away and prove the world that I am not who they think I am. I am not who I think I am. I am what they call a true Chad. So I went to the barber and instantly got into a fist fight with the first guy who looked into my eyes. After beating him up, I went inside and got myself a fresh cut. I didn't tip the barber and he instead tipped me. This was the first time something like this had happened. I was shocked at this, and it felt really good. I went outside and my gut told me to go into the sunset, so that's what I did. Then I rode hard towards the north because something in me was pointing in that direction. It was like a compass inside me was stuck pointing at the north and the feeling was overwhelming. I didn't know what it was, but I wanted to follow it. This was the first time I had ever felt something so empowering yet mysterious. On my way north, a carriage crashed into me and made me fall. So I jumped on the carriage and threw them down. Effortlessly. Then I got off the carriage and beat him to death. The other guy was shooting at me, but it was like my body was moving so gracefully that I managed to dodge every single bullet and took him down. Of course, effortlessly. After erasing the insects, I looked at the sky and it was night time. So I set up a camp and stared into the flames as I realized how it felt to finally be able to kill and harm, how it feels to absolutely dominate and thrash around other beta males who put on a mask and try to portray themselves as alphas. It was not evil, it was godly. To give life is something, but to take one is a completely different story. And of course, I had just taken two. After a month of killing and growing my beard, I stopped at a camp because I wanted to ask for directions. I unmounted my horse, Rachel, and started walking towards the man. He began to threaten me because he thought I was just some other beta male, walking in his territory, but in reality, he was standing in mine. So, I killed him with my bare hands and watched his body burn. I then stole a bottle of beer from his camp and aggressively drank it. I had also stole a compass from him and I was headed north when all of a sudden I spotted this huge bear growling towards other riders. I instantly knew I had to take it down. I took out my peasant slicer and began going after it. I thought the bear had not seen me, so I ignorantly got closer. But, to my horror, it charged at me, and started gnawing at me with all of its ferocity and feralness. I took out my knife the moment I could and stabbed it in the neck. The bear stumbled backwards. I instantly took out my revolver and shot it several times. Luckily, obviously, because of me being the absolute perfection of a man, it had died. I kicked the dead bear several times because I felt like it could have done better. Then I walked into the scenery without any reason. Then I started running towards north. After killing that bear, I knew what I was supposed to do, and where I was supposed to go, in order to prove that I am absolutely, and utterly, above and beyond everyone else. I had to be one with nature. In my heart, I knew I was born, naturally, and I wanted to die, literally. Because my muscles were stronger than my brain, I knew I had to go to places no man had ever gone, and venture into the merciless wild to test if I really am the pinnacle of perfection, and of course, absolute fitness. I had reached the northern area, and as you can see, I had evolved on this journey. I was no longer wearing a shirt because I believed my skin was perfect, and it can obviously protect me from the harsh elements of nature quite sufficiently. I hadn't stopped running at all, and my body was sweating. It was like a natural shower your body gives you. And you know, that's completely natural. Natural was exactly what I was after. I crossed the river gracefully, and I noticed a carriage had stopped ahead. I went to the horses and spanked them because I honestly felt like spanking a horse that day. Then I saw a huge elk and decided to kill it for the meat, but of course, using my knife only. His wife was happy to be free, so she gave me a hug as she ran away, so I kicked her dead husband and left him to rot. It was like nature was communicating with me. I was going uphill into the northern grizzlies and I was kind of feeling tired. But I knew I couldn't give up. This was my purpose. This was my journey to absolute perfection and maximum dominance. So I kept walking. That's when my eye caught a glimpse of what looked like a bird floating on top of a rock. I immediately took out my binoculars, but the bird flew away. It was like it had just disappeared. I wondered if these were the spirits of the forest watching upon me as I ascend and go deeper into the cruel wilderness. Anyway, I started running, and soon I heard what sounded like water. I gasped as I saw snow littered on the ground. It was a spectacular sight. Even though I was shirtless, my body was excessively sweating due to the constant running. It was obviously the natural way to stay warm during low temperatures. I looked at the snow-covered mountains and wondered how small I am compared to these natural structures. But I know we had one thing in common. We were both immovable and unbreakable. We both were the sheer perfection of nature, and Mother Earth. As I kept running, I soon found myself almost knee-deep in snow, but I was not bothered because my blood was pumping so fast, I couldn't feel a thing. Soon after, it had started snowing and I was getting hungry. I knew there was a lake nearby, so I headed in that direction and decided to catch a fish, and then feast upon it, while it's still fresh, in order to get the ultimate natural experience. I was still sweaty even though it was snowing, due to the fact that I had been running, and of course, because I was at the peak of my physical perfection. So I reached the lake and took out my folding, portable, majestic fishing rod and swung it into the water. The fishes were obviously instantly attracted to it due to my lure having immense attractiveness among fishes. I hooked one fish easily because I am a strong hooker, and soon after, the fish was in my arms. I made a fire nearby and cooked the fish, then I proceeded to eat it while it was still stuck to my knife, because I obviously wanted to intimidate the fire. Then I got up and the fire extinguished itself, so I began to go back uphill and continue my legendary journey to reach absolute perfection. I kept going despite all the thick snow on the ground, because I had to reach the top. It's obvious, if one wants to be at the top, he has to be at the top. And yes, I said, he. Precisely and clearly. Because we all know Chads are only born in the males of our species, it is safe to assume that only men are capable of such feats and brainless challenges. Women might have more brain, but we have more muscles. So as I offended all the righteous feminists, a deer decided to hit me because his wife was offended. Then as I got a bit farther, a goat proceeded to hit me, obviously because I had offended his wife too. I guess there are simps even in the wild. Or maybe this was Mother Nature's way of telling me that she's also a woman. Anyway, any sort of ramming or falling can't stop me from reaching the top. In any sense. After a good hour of tireless running, I found a few abandoned buildings in the snow. They were surely creepy, but I knew they offered decent protection and a roof to sleep under. I checked the barn and found manure on the ground. Then I went into a cabin and searched the dresses in hopes of finding something, and I found a tonic and some oatcakes. I wondered if they're expired, but I didn't care. I sat on the bed and decided to rest here because tomorrow I had to reach the top, no matter what happens. I would rather die than not reach absolute perfection. I was already showing signs of growth and ascendance as my body was constantly sweating and the hair on my chest began to puff out. The place was cozy. And soon, I fell asleep. I woke up the next day and immediately felt a strong rush of adrenaline in my body, so I got up and went straight outside. Today was the day I either reach the top or die trying. I ran, and I ran, and I ran until I could no longer feel my legs. Soon, I found myself walking on top of a completely snow-covered mountain. The clouds were right next to me as the moonlight showed me my way. It was a beautiful night and I knew that the moon was there to guide me. I felt like a Viking Chad walking through the ice, planting each foot ahead of the other, one by one. I kept counting my footsteps because I felt like any could be my last. I had no water, so I periodically licked the sweat off my body. As soon as I saw a way to the peak, I began running because I knew I was a few hundred feet away from my ultimate goal. I ran up the steep mountain because nothing scared me anymore. All I could hear were my footsteps and the howling wind. I could feel the pebbles slipping under my feet, but I was obviously fearless due to being a gigachad now. As soon as I thought I was about to reach a good point, I slipped. But obviously, I couldn't just die. I managed to grab onto a cliff and climbed my way back to the top. Like a professional mountain grabber, I grabbed the mountain hard and it felt gay, but I didn't let go. I was almost at the top now, only a few more steps and I would be above everyone and everything. I felt a fire burn inside of me as I took every step towards my ultimate goal. I had UTIs. The warm rays of the sun shined on me, and it felt like home. I walked the final steps towards the top and I knew something big was waiting for me at the very peak. Although I hadn't shat since a couple of days, I knew it would already be frozen. So I kept walking, and I had done it. I had ascended beyond normal human potential. I was, literally, above them all. The view was amazing, and I felt accomplished. I stood there for a couple of hours, just admiring the view and smiling on the memories I had made on this legendary journey to reach ultimate chadness. I had become the epitome of sustenance and survival, of ultimate acceptance and maximum dominance. I am the one they will write books on. I am the one legends will be based on. I am the finest of my species. No one could ever compare to me, and if they try, I'll obviously be there to strangle them to silence and complete non-existence. But, like all things in life, this had to come to an end. At night, I felt dizzy and my heart started beating abnormally. My vision started to blur out, and I began to panic. I tried to sit down, but I fell. My life was flashing before my eyes. I could see a bright light at the end of a tunnel and I wanted to reach it. I ran with all my might, but it felt like the light kept moving further away. So I shouted at it, and it came running towards me. When I woke up, I was back near the abandoned cabins and it was a relief. I was glad to be alive. But I know I would because I obviously had unbreakable plot armor. I went back inside the shed to take a nap. I had earned my well-deserved rest. But, soon, I had awoken to the sound of knocking on the door. Who knew this would be the last of me? As I was walking towards the door, I heard what sounded like people whispering. I swung the door open. And like Mufasa said, a king's time as ruler rises and falls like the sun. It was my time. And there they were. All of my enemies in one place. They all wanted one thing: to end me. I was not bothered or scared at all. In fact, I just stared at them and looked each one of them dead in the eyes. I took out my guns right in front of them, and then I fired the first shots. The sound of gunshots was so deafening. My ears began to ring, but I kept shooting at it, and then it all went black. Thank you so much for watching. If you're also a fellow Chad, or you want to be a gigachad, then make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel to see more of these. Make sure to take good care of yourself. Farewell.